the warship they mocked as a joke, until it wiped out their fleet. The Galactic Council's space station gleamed like a jewel against the darkness of space. Ships from 100 different worlds floated around it, each one more impressive than the last. The Valtrexi Empire brought vessels that looked like silver blades cutting through the void. The Morphid Collective arrived in ships made of living crystal that pulsed with inner light. Even the smaller civilizations showed off their newest weapons and shields with obvious pride. Then came the human ship. Captain Daeho. Kim sat in his command chair aboard the KSDF Indomitable Spirit and watched the view screen. He could see the other ships through the display, all of them beautiful and deadly. His own ship looked nothing like them. It was a box with engines attached. The hull showed patches where repairs had been made over the years. The paint was faded in spots. One of the sensor arrays had been replaced with a different model that did not quite match the others. "Captain, we're receiving multiple incoming transmissions," said Lieutenant Bo-Ra Choi from her station. Her voice was tight with controlled anger. "Most of them are laughing at us," Daeho nodded slowly. He had expected this. Let them through. All channels. The bridge speakers came alive with sounds from across the galaxy. Some aliens chirped and clicked in amusement. Others made rumbling sounds that their translators converted to mocking laughter. One voice cut through all the others, clear and sharp with contempt. "Did the humans mistake the directions? This is a military showcase, not a junkyard auction." The translator identified the speaker as Commander Hyan of the Valtrexi Empire. More laughter followed his words. Bora turned in her seat to face Daeho. Her hands gripped the armrests of her chair hard enough that her knuckles went white. "Sir, permission to respond?" "Denied," Daeho said quietly. "Save it for later." On the main station, Ambassador Jin-Woo Park prepared to address the Galactic Council. He wore his formal diplomatic robes and carried the credentials that should have given him respect. The council chamber was enormous, with seats arranged in circles that rose toward the ceiling. Representatives from every major civilization sat in judgment. Jin-Woo stepped forward to the speaking platform. "Honored delegates, humanity petitions for full military membership in the Galactic Council. We have met all technical requirements. Our fleet serves with distinction. We ask only for the recognition we have earned." A Valtrexi delegate stood up. His form was tall and thin, covered in scales that shimmered with reflected light. "Recognition for what? We have reviewed your military capabilities. Your ships are outdated. Your weapons are primitive. You still use chemical propellants and kinetic weapons like savages throwing rocks." Other delegates made sounds of agreement. A Morphid representative, its crystalline body refracting light into rainbow patterns, added its voice. "Your technology is 2 centuries behind the standard. Perhaps in 50 years, when you have caught up to civilized levels, you may apply again." Jin-Woo kept his face calm, but inside he felt frustration building. "Our technology may be different, but it is effective. We have proven ourselves in every engagement." "Against pirates and raiders," the Valtrexi delegate said with dismissal in his voice. "Never against a true military power. You have no experience with real warfare." Another voice joined the conversation, this one belonging to a species that looked like a collection of floating spheres. "Perhaps we should test this claim. A demonstration would be educational for all parties." The Valtrexi delegate's eyes glittered with something that looked like hunger. "An excellent suggestion. A simulated fleet engagement. If the humans can hold their own against a proper military force, we will reconsider their application. If they cannot, they withdraw their petition for 50 standard years." Jin-Woo felt his stomach drop. This was a trap and everyone in the chamber knew it. But refusing would be seen as weakness. "What are the terms?" "Simple," said the Valtrexi delegate. 1 human vessel against a Valtrexi squadron. 12 of our ships against 1 of yours. Simulated weapons only, but with full sensor tracking. The engagement continues until one side surrenders or is completely disabled. 3 days from now. In the designated combat zone. The chamber filled with the sounds of agreement. Jin-Woo looked around at the faces watching him. Some showed curiosity. Many showed amusement. A few showed what might have been pity. None showed support. "Humanity accepts," Jin-Woo said, because there was nothing else he could say. Back on the Indomitable Spirit, Daeho received the news with no change in expression. His crew was not as calm. Bora stood up from her station so fast her chair rolled backward. 12 ships? They want us to face 12 warships alone? Her voice rose with each word. "That's not a test, that's an execution." "Sit down, Lieutenant." Daeho said, his voice still quiet but with an edge of command that made her obey immediately. He looked around at his bridge crew. Does anyone here think we cannot win? The question hung in the air. Chief Engineer Young Sik Nam spoke up from his station near the back of the bridge. Sir, their weapons technology is significantly more advanced than ours. Each of their ships carries more firepower than our entire vessel. I didn't ask about their ships, Daeho said. I asked if you think we can win. Young Sik smiled slowly. With respect, sir, I think they're going to regret this. Science Officer Haewon Lee pulled up data on her screens. Captain, I'm looking at the Valtrexi fleet composition. They fight in standard formations. Very precise, very coordinated. Beautiful to watch according to the records. And predictable, Daeho asked. Very predictable, Haewon confirmed. Navigator Taeyang Song turned from his console with a grin on his young face. Captain, if I may, I've studied Earth military history. There's a pattern that shows up over and over. Whenever a superior force faces an inferior one and gets too confident, the inferior force finds ways to win ugly. Ugly, Daeho repeated. He stood up from his command chair and walked to the view screen. Outside, the station glittered with lights from 1,000 docking ports. Ships came and went in carefully controlled patterns. Everything was orderly, clean, and civilized. They think we're primitive, he said to his crew. They think our weapons are toys. They think this ship is garbage held together with spare parts and hope. He turned back to face them. They're right about some of that. But they forgot something important. Primitive doesn't mean ineffective. Simple doesn't mean weak, and ugly can still win. He touched the communications panel on his chair. All hands, this is the captain. In 3 days, we're going to show the galaxy what humans can do. We're going to teach the Valtrexi a lesson about underestimating Earth. Get some rest. Then report to your stations. We have work to do. Outside the ship, the other vessels continued their elegant dances through space. Inside the Indomitable Spirit, the crew began to prepare for war. The warship they mocked as a joke, until it wiped out their fleet. The crew of the Indomitable Spirit did not sleep that night. While the Valtrexi celebrated their coming victory in the station's luxury quarters, humans worked in the dimly lit corridors of their battered warship. Daeho had called a meeting of his senior officers in the briefing room, a small space with a single table and chairs that had seen better days. Show them what we have, Daeho said to Haewon. The science officer activated the holographic display in the center of the table. Images of 12 Valtrexi warships appeared, rotating slowly. Each one was sleek and deadly, covered in weapon ports and shield emitters. Data scrolled beside each ship showing their capabilities. Each Valtrexi vessel carries plasma cannons that can melt through standard armor in seconds, Haewon explained. Their shields can absorb tremendous amounts of damage before failing. Their sensors can track targets across millions of kilometers. They're fast, powerful, and expensive. Each one costs more than our entire defense budget for a year. So we can't beat them ship to ship, Bora said. She leaned forward to study the display. Their technology is just too far ahead. That's true if we fight them on their terms, Young Sik said. The engineer pulled up different images, these showing the Indomitable Spirit's cargo bays and docking clamps. But we don't have to play by their rules, Daeho smiled. It was not a nice smile. Show them. Young Sik manipulated the controls and the image changed. The cargo bays opened up to reveal dozens of smaller vessels hidden inside, fighters that were really just cockpits with engines and guns attached, mining shuttles that had been stripped down and fitted with missile racks, even automated ore haulers, the kind used to move rocks from asteroid mines. They think the Indomitable Spirit is one ship, Young Sik explained, but she's more like a carrier. We've been hiding these smaller craft in every available space. The station sensors read them as cargo or spare parts because that's what they used to be. Taeyang pulled up more data. I've been studying Valtrexi battle tactics. They fight in perfect formations. Each ship has a designated position and role. They practice these formations until they can execute them perfectly. It's like watching a dance. A predictable dance, Haewon added. They've won so many battles using the same tactics that they never needed to change. Why would they? It always works, Bora began to understand. But if we can disrupt that formation, make them react instead of execute their plan, then they have to improvise, Daeho finished. And they've never had to do that before. We have one advantage that matters more than all their advanced technology. We know how to adapt. The planning continued through the night. Young Sik explained how he had modified the mining shuttles. Each one now carried enough explosives to damage a much larger ship. They were cheap, simple, and could be controlled remotely. If they were destroyed, no one died. HFY described her electronic warfare plans. Human computer systems had been hacked and attacked so many times throughout history that their security was paranoid and redundant. Alien systems, protected by their technological superiority, had never needed such defenses. She could flood their communications with false signals and spoofed data. Bora outlined the drone swarms, hundreds of small automated units, each carrying a simple explosive charge. They were primitive by galactic standards, just small engines with basic navigation and a payload, but there were so many of them that destroying all of them would be nearly impossible. Taeyang showed his navigation plans. No elegant maneuvers or graceful turns, just hard burns, sharp angles, and aggressive positioning. The indomitable spirit would fight like a brawler in an alley, not a duelist in an arena. "What about ammunition?" asked Bora. "If this goes longer than expected, we'll run out." Young-Sik grinned. "That's where the ore haulers come in. Each one is loaded with several thousand tons of refined metal. If we run out of missiles, we start throwing rocks. Very fast rocks. Kinetic kill vehicles," HFY said with approval. "Primitive, simple, and devastatingly effective. A chunk of metal moving at a significant fraction of light speed doesn't care about shields or armor. It just punches through." Daeho stood up and looked at each of his officers in turn. "This plan is risky. If something goes wrong, we could lose the ship and our chance at council membership. Does anyone have objections?" The room was silent for a moment. Then Young-Sik spoke. "Captain, with all due respect, we stopped caring about risk when we left Earth. We're flying through space in a metal can, breathing recycled air and picking fights with aliens who think we're bugs. Risk is our normal." The others nodded agreement. Bora added, "Besides, I want to see the look on Commander Hyan's face when his perfect fleet falls apart." "Then we're decided," Daeho said. "Get to work. We have 3 days to turn a cargo hauler into the most dangerous ship in the galaxy." The crew scattered to their tasks. Young-Sik went to the cargo bays to oversee the final modifications to the hidden vessels. HFY locked herself in the computer core to prepare her electronic attacks. Bora organized the drone controllers and ran simulations of swarm tactics. Taeyang studied every recording of Valtrexi fleet movements he could find, looking for patterns and weaknesses. Daeho made his way to a different part of the station, to a small diplomatic office where Jinwoo waited. The ambassador looked tired but determined. "The council is already preparing the viewing arrangements," Jinwoo said. "This will be broadcast across the galaxy. Millions will watch." "Good," Daeho replied. "Let them watch. Let them see what happens when you push humans into a corner." Jinwoo pulled up a secure communication channel. On the screen appeared Captain Misun On, commanding the covert operations vessel Silent Arrow. Her ship was hidden in an asteroid field beyond the station, invisible to casual sensors. "Ambassador." "Captain Kim," Misun said with a slight nod. "We're in position. If things go badly, we'll have complete recordings of the engagement. The truth won't be hidden. It won't come to that," Daeho said with confidence he might not entirely feel. "But it's good to know you're there." After the communication ended, Jinwoo looked at Daeho with concern. "Can you really win this?" Daeho was quiet for a moment, thinking about his ship and his crew, thinking about Earth and all the wars humans had fought against each other, learning hard lessons written in blood across thousands of years, thinking about adaptation and survival and the stubborn refusal to give up that seemed to define his species. "Ambassador, humans have been fighting since we learned to pick up sticks and hit each other with them. We've fought with swords and guns and bombs and missiles. We've fought in mud and snow and desert and space. We've fought against enemies with better weapons, better armor, better training. And we're still here. The Valtrexi have forgotten something important." "What's that?" Jinwoo asked. "There's no such thing as a fair fight," Daeho said. "There's only winners and losers. And humans have had a lot of practice at winning ugly." He left the ambassador and returned to his ship. There was still much work to do. The warship they mocked as a joke, until it wiped out their fleet. The combat zone was a carefully designated area of empty space far from any inhabited systems. Safety buoys marked the boundaries, and sensor platforms surrounded the arena to record every moment of the engagement. Ships from dozens of civilizations gathered at a safe distance to watch. The betting pools had opened immediately, and the odds against humanity were astronomical. Daeho sat in his command chair and watched the sensors as the Valtrexi fleet entered the zone. 12 ships moved in perfect synchronization, their formation a textbook example of military precision. Each vessel gleamed under the light of the distant star, their shields already active and shimmering like heat waves. "They're beautiful," Bora said quietly from her tactical station. "I almost feel bad about what we're going to do to them." "Almost?" Hyung-sik asked from engineering with a slight laugh. "Almost," Bora confirmed. The communication channel opened and Commander Hyun's face appeared on the main screen. He looked confident, almost bored. Behind him, the bridge of his flagship showed clean lines and advanced technology. Everything was pristine and perfect. "Humans," Hyun said, his voice carrying that same contempt from before. "This is your final chance to withdraw. Surrender now and spare yourselves the humiliation of defeat. We will even allow you to keep your pride by claiming technical difficulties." Daeho leaned back in his chair. He looked tired, his uniform rumpled from 3 days of constant work. His bridge was cramped and worn with exposed pipes and patched panels. Next to the Valtrexi flagship, the indomitable Spirit looked like exactly what she was. An old cargo hauler pressed into military service. "Commander Hyun," Daeho said calmly, "we appreciate your concern. But we came here to fight. Let's begin." Hyun's expression showed amusement mixed with pity. "As you wish. Do try to make this entertaining. My crew has been looking forward to an easy victory." The channel closed. Across the galaxy, millions of beings watched their screens as the engagement timer began counting down. Commentators spoke in hundreds of languages about the mismatch in technology and firepower. Some expressed sympathy for humanity's inevitable defeat. Others mocked the arrogance of bringing such a primitive vessel to face Valtrexi military might. The timer reached 0. The Valtrexi fleet advanced in their perfect formation. Shields at full strength, weapons charging. They moved like a school of predatory fish, each ship maintaining exact distances from the others. Their plasma cannons began to glow with building power. The indomitable Spirit hung in space, seemingly alone and vulnerable. Then Daeho gave the order that changed everything. "Execute dispersal pattern Alpha. All units break and scatter." The indomitable Spirit seemed to explode. Dozens of smaller vessels detached from the main hull, bursting from hidden bays and releasing from concealed clamps. Fighters shot forward on pillars of flame. Mining shuttles tumbled away in multiple directions. Ore haulers that had been masquerading as external fuel tanks jettisoned free and revealed their true nature as weapons platforms. The Valtrexi formation faltered. Hyun's voice came over the channel, confusion replacing his earlier confidence. "What is this?" "This is against the rules of engagement." "What rules?" Daeho asked innocently. "The agreement specified a fleet engagement." "This is my fleet." Across the watching galaxy, commentators fell silent. This was not how these demonstrations were supposed to go. Bora launched the first wave of drones. Hundreds of small automated units, each no larger than a person, erupted from the dispersing vessels. They swarmed toward the Valtrexi ships like angry insects, simple and numerous and cheap. "Point defenses active," reported one of Hyun's officers on the Valtrexi command channel, which human sensors were helpfully recording. "Engaging targets." Energy beams lanced out from the Valtrexi ships, each shot destroying a drone in a brief flash of light. The aliens were efficient and accurate. For every second that passed, dozens of drones died. But there were hundreds of drones, and each one destroyed was one less the Valtrexi could use their weapons on something more dangerous. Their point defense systems are operating at 90% capacity. Haewon reported from her station. They're having to dedicate most of their weapons to drone suppression. "Good," Daeho said. "Deploy the shuttles." 6 mining shuttles burned hard toward the Valtrexi formation. Each one was controlled remotely, its small crew compartment now filled with high explosives and improvised warheads. The Valtrexi ships targeted them immediately, recognizing them as more dangerous than the small drones. 5 shuttles died in spectacular explosions as plasma fire found them, but the 6th one, covered by a swarm of drones and moving erratically, slipped through the defensive fire. Its shields, primitive things made for deflecting micrometeorites during mining operations, flickered and died under the energy barrage. But the shuttle itself kept coming. "Target their lead ship," Daeho ordered. The flagship. The shuttle's simple computer brain, programmed with one final task, adjusted course. It accelerated toward Hyun's vessel, pushing its engines beyond safe limits. The Valtrexi ship's shields were still at full strength, shimmering barriers of advanced technology that could absorb tremendous damage. But the shields had limits. Every drone that exploded against them, every energy beam they absorbed, drew power from the ship's generators. And the swarm of drones was endless, each small explosion adding up. For just a moment, a fraction of a second, the shields overloaded. They flickered and went transparent. The mining shuttle, moving at maximum velocity, struck the Valtrexi flagship's hull directly. Several tons of explosives detonated on contact. The elegant alien ship shuddered. Armor plating buckled and tore. Atmosphere vented in white plumes. The flagship listed to one side, its perfect position in the formation broken. The watching galaxy gasped in collective shock. The Valtrexi were bleeding. "Impossible," Hyun said, his voice shaking. "You're using primitive weapons. Chemical explosives. Kinetic impacts. These are weapons from your planet's ancient history. They still work, though," Daeho observed. "Taeyang, bring us around. Put us between their second and third ships. Youngsik, prepare the main cannons." The indomitable spirit began to move, and she moved nothing like the graceful Valtrexi vessels. Taeyang threw the ship into hard burns and sharp turns that would have been dangerous if the artificial gravity systems weren't working overtime. The old cargo hauler danced through space like a boxer, aggressive and unpredictable. The Valtrexi ships tried to maintain their formation, but the constant drone attacks and the erratic human vessels forced them to break apart. Ships that had trained to fight as one unit suddenly found themselves operating independently, their carefully practiced tactics falling apart. Haewon activated her electronic warfare suite. Carefully crafted signals flooded the Valtrexi communication channels, each one designed to look like legitimate targeting data or sensor readings. The aliens had never encountered this kind of attack before. Their computers, designed for efficiency rather than security, began processing the false information. Two Valtrexi ships suddenly turned toward each other, their targeting systems convinced they were aiming at human vessels. They fired at the same moment. Plasma beams crossed the space between them and struck shields, causing both ships to rock from the impact. "Cease fire. Cease fire!" Jan screamed into his communications. "We're shooting each other." The indomitable spirit opened fire with her main cannons. They were simple railguns using electromagnetic force to accelerate metal projectiles to extreme speeds. Nothing fancy, nothing elegant, just chunks of dense metal moving very fast. One of the projectiles struck a Valtrexi ship that was still recovering from the friendly fire incident. The kinetic impact punched through weakened shields and tore a hole in the hull. The ship began spinning, venting atmosphere and debris. "First kill confirmed," Bora reported, her voice tight with focus. "Target is disabled and retreating." Around the combat zone, the watching civilizations began to understand. The humans were not just fighting, they were winning. The warship they mocked as a joke, until it wiped out their fleet commander. Hyen stared at his tactical display in disbelief. Two of his ships were disabled, drifting with emergency power only. 3 more had sustained significant damage from the continuous drone attacks and the humans' relentless kinetic weapons. His perfect formation had dissolved into chaos, with ships scattered across the combat zone trying to defend themselves against enemies that came from every direction. "This cannot be happening," he said to no one in particular. "They're primitives. They have no right to be winning." His tactical officer, a younger Valtrexi named Kryn, spoke up nervously. "Commander, perhaps we should withdraw and request reinforcements. The humans are using tactics we have not encountered before." "Withdraw?" Hyun's voice rose with anger. "In front of the entire galaxy? Never. All ships abandon defensive protocols. Full offensive assault. Destroy that cargo hauler and show them what real military power looks like." The remaining Valtrexi vessels, their pride wounded worse than their hulls, charged forward. They abandoned their careful tactics in favor of raw aggression. Plasma cannons fired continuously, filling space with deadly energy. For a moment it seemed like the tide might turn. The indomitable spirit took the full force of the assault. Plasma beams struck her bow and sides, overwhelming her shields in seconds. Armor plating melted and boiled away. Hull breaches appeared along 2 decks. Emergency alarms wailed throughout the ship. "Shields down," called out a crew member. "Hull breaches on decks 3 and 5. Emergency bulkheads holding." Young Sik's voice came through the internal communications. shouting over the sound of damage control teams working frantically. "Captain, we've lost main power to the forward weapon systems. Switching to backup batteries, but they won't last long." "How long?" Deho asked calmly, even as his ship shuddered from another impact. 6 shots. Maybe 7. Then we're dry on the railguns. Deho nodded, his hands gripping his chair arms tightly. The ship bucked under him as another plasma beam found its mark. "Then we make them count." "Bora, status on the ore haulers?" "In position, Captain. The Valtrexi have been ignoring them because they register as civilian vessels. They're about to learn that everything can be a weapon if you're creative enough. Detonate on my mark." The ore haulers had been drifting slowly through the combat zone, looking like nothing more than abandoned cargo vessels. The Valtrexi had dismissed them entirely, focusing on the more immediate threats of fighters and drones. This was their mistake. Each hauler contained thousands of tons of refined metal. More importantly, each one had been rigged with explosives placed carefully throughout their cargo holds. When those explosives detonated, they would turn the haulers into massive fragmentation bombs, sending chunks of metal flying in every direction at high velocity. "Mark," Deho said quietly. Bora triggered the detonation sequence. 3 ore haulers exploded simultaneously, positioned carefully among the Valtrexi fleet. The effect was devastating. Millions of pieces of shrapnel, ranging from fist-sized chunks to fragments no larger than a coin, erupted outward at extreme speeds. The Valtrexi shields, already strained from the continuous combat, tried to absorb the impacts. They failed. Shield generators overloaded across the fleet. Shrapnel tore through armor plating. One Valtrexi ship, caught in the blast radius of 2 explosions at once, simply disintegrated under the assault. Another took a large piece of metal directly through its engine section and went dark. All power lost. 3 more ships disabled, Bora reported. Her voice carried a grim satisfaction. "That brings us to 6 total. They're down to half strength." Hyon's flagship had survived, but barely. Emergency lights flickered on his bridge. Smoke filled the air despite the ventilation systems working overtime. His tactical officer was injured, being tended to by medical personnel. "Status report," Hyon demanded, coughing from the smoke. "Shields at 20% and failing," someone reported. "Main weapons offline. Point defense at minimal capacity. Hull breaches on multiple decks." Through his view screen, Hyon watched the indomitable Spirit maneuver through the debris field. The human ship was damaged, scarred, trailing atmosphere from multiple breaches. But she was still moving, still fighting. Around her, the remaining human fighters and drones continued their relentless attacks. "How?" Hyon asked, his voice breaking. "How are they doing this?" From the indomitable Spirit, Deho could see the Valtrexi fleet falling apart. Hay-1 was still running her electronic warfare programs, flooding their sensors with false data. Taeyang was piloting the ship through impossible maneuvers, using debris as cover and firing from unexpected angles. Young Sik was performing miracles in engineering, keeping damaged systems operational through sheer stubbornness and creative repairs. "Captain," Taeyang called out, "I have a firing solution on the Valtrexi flagship. Recommend we take it?" Deho hesitated. Destroying the flagship would effectively end the engagement. It would be a decisive victory, but it would also be a humiliation for Hyon and the Valtrexi Empire that they might never forgive. Then he remembered the contempt in Hyon's voice at the beginning. The mocking laughter of the Galactic Council, the assumption that humans were too primitive to matter, and he remembered something else. This was not just about winning a single battle. This was about respect, about making sure the galaxy understood that humanity was not to be dismissed. "Take the shot," Deho ordered. The indomitable Spirit's remaining railgun charged one final time. Power from across the ship was diverted to the weapon, leaving some sections in darkness. The magnetic coils hummed with building energy. A single projectile, nothing more than a dense slug of metal, sat ready in the firing chamber. Taeyang adjusted the ship's position with careful precision, compensating for the Valtrexi flagship's movement and the drift of debris in the combat zone. His calculations had to be perfect. At these distances and velocities, even a small error would cause the shot to miss entirely. "Firing solution locked," he said. "Fire," Deho commanded. The railgun discharged with a sound that resonated through the entire ship. The metal projectile left the barrel at a significant fraction of light speed. It crossed the distance to the Valtrexi flagship in less than a second. The damaged shields of Hyon's ship tried to stop it. They might as well have tried to stop a hurricane with a paper fan. The projectile punched through the shields as if they were not there. It struck the flagship's hull at an angle, penetrating armor plating that was supposed to be nearly indestructible. The projectile traveled through 3 decks before its kinetic energy was finally exhausted. The damage it caused along the way was catastrophic. Systems failed in cascading waves. The flagship's main reactor went into emergency shutdown. Life support flickered and died in half the ship. Jan found himself sitting in darkness, with only emergency lighting showing him the ruins of his bridge. His beautiful, perfect, unbeatable ship was dead in space. Through the view screen, he could see the scarred and battered Indomitable Spirit, still operational despite all the damage she had taken. All Valtrexi vessels. Deho's voice came through the emergency channel, calm and professional. This engagement is over. Power down your weapons and prepare to be recovered by support craft. We have won. There was a long silence. Then one by one, the remaining Valtrexi ships went dark, their weapons powering down in surrender. The watching galaxy erupted in shock and disbelief. Commentators struggled to find words. Betting pools collapsed as the impossible had occurred. A single human vessel, using primitive technology and unconventional tactics, had defeated an entire Valtrexi squadron. On the Indomitable Spirit, the crew sat in exhausted silence. They had won, but the cost was written across their ship in melted armor and breached hulls. It would take months of repairs to bring her back to full capability. "Captain," Boras said quietly. "We did it." "We did," Deho agreed. He looked around at his damaged bridge and his tired crew. "But remember this moment. Remember how hard we had to fight. Because the next time they won't underestimate us. They'll be ready." Young Six's voice came through the communications, tired but triumphant. "Captain, engineering reports were down to emergency power only. But we're stable." The old girl held together. "She always does," Deho said, patting the arm of his chair affectionately. "She always does." The warship they mocked as a joke, until it wiped out their fleet. 7 days after the battle, the Galactic Council convened an emergency session. The chamber was packed with representatives from every major civilization. Additional observers filled the upper galleries, all of them wanting to witness this historic moment. At the center of attention sat humanity's delegation, led by Ambassador Jinwoo Park. The large view screens around the chamber showed footage from the battle, captured from multiple angles by the sensor platforms. The council members watched in silence as the engagement played out again. They saw the Indomitable Spirit break apart into dozens of smaller vessels. They saw the drone swarms overwhelm Valtrexi defenses. They witnessed the ore haulers explode and the flagship fall. When the footage ended, the chamber remained quiet. No one seemed eager to speak first. Finally, the Morphid Collective's representative, its crystalline form refracting the chamber lights, broke the silence. What we witnessed was not warfare. It was brutality. The humans fought without honor, without elegance, without any regard for the proper conduct of military engagement. Jinwoo stood to respond, but another voice cut through the chamber first. It came from the Draenei Conquered, a species known for their ancient military traditions. What we witnessed was adaptation. The humans analyzed their opponent, identified weaknesses, and exploited them with ruthless efficiency. That is the essence of warfare, regardless of how it appears. The Morphid representative turned toward the Draenei. "You would defend such primitive tactics?" "I would acknowledge their effectiveness," the Draenei responded calmly. The Valtrexi fleet was superior in every technological measure. Yet they lost. That fact alone demands our attention and respect. More voices joined the debate. Some condemned the humans for using weapons that seemed crude and unsophisticated. Others pointed out that there had been no rules against such weapons and that the Valtrexi had agreed to the engagement knowing the terms. Through it all, Jinwoo waited patiently. He had learned over his years as a diplomat that sometimes the best strategy was to let others make your arguments for you. The council elder who had presided over the original challenge finally raised a hand for silence. "Ambassador Park, the council would hear from you directly. How do you respond to the accusation that humanity fights without honor?" Jinwoo took a breath and stood. He looked around the chamber at all the different species watching him. "Honored council members, I must ask a question in return. What is honor worth if you lose? What is elegance worth if your ships are destroyed and your people are defeated? He gestured to the screens showing the battle footage. My people have been fighting wars for thousands of years. We have fought each other with every weapon we could devise in every environment our world could produce. We learned hard lessons written in blood and sacrifice. One of those lessons is this: survival does not care about beauty. Victory does not care about tradition. A Valtrexi delegate not high on who was conspicuously absent stood to speak. You speak of survival, yet you deliberately brought inferior technology to a military engagement. This suggests either foolishness or deception. Neither, Jinwoo replied. It suggests resourcefulness. Yes, our technology is older and simpler than yours. But simple does not mean ineffective. A rock is simple, but a rock moving fast enough can destroy the most advanced starship ever built. That is physics, not deception. He pulled up new data on the screens. During the engagement, the indomitable Spirit was struck by plasma fire over 200 times. Our armor melted. Our hull was breached in 17 locations. We lost main power twice. By all rights, we should have been destroyed. But you survived, noted a representative from a species Jinwoo did not recognize. We survived because our ship was designed to take damage and keep fighting. Every system has backups. Every critical component is redundant. Our damage control teams trained for situations like this. When your shield generator fails, your whole shield goes down. When one of our systems fails, we route around it and keep going. Jinwoo paused, letting his words sink in. You mock our primitive weapons, but those weapons won the battle. You criticize our crude tactics, but those tactics defeated a superior force. Perhaps the question the Council should be asking is not whether we fight with honor, but whether your definitions of honor have made you vulnerable. The chamber erupted in arguing voices. Some delegates were outraged at the suggestion that their military traditions might be flawed. Others seemed thoughtful, reconsidering assumptions they had held for generations. The council elder called for order. This debate could continue indefinitely. We must vote. The question before us is simple. Does humanity qualify for full military membership in the Galactic Council? Before the vote could begin, a new voice spoke. Captain Dae-ho Kim had entered the chamber, still wearing his work uniform. It was stained with coolant and soot from helping with repairs to his ship. He had not bothered to clean up or change into formal attire. Permission to address the council, he said. The elder nodded. Granted. You are? Captain Dae-ho Kim, commanding officer of the Indomitable Spirit. A murmur ran through the chamber. Many of the delegates had watched the battle, but this was their first time seeing the human captain who had orchestrated the impossible victory. Dae-ho walked to the center of the chamber, his boots echoing in the sudden quiet. He looked tired, with dark circles under his eyes and a cut on his forehead that had been hastily bandaged. He looked nothing like the polished military leaders the council was used to seeing. I've listened to the debate, Dae-ho said. Many of you are focused on how we won. You're arguing about tactics and honor and tradition, but you're missing the important point. He gestured to the battle footage still displayed on the screens. We won because we had to. Not because we wanted to prove something, not because we sought glory. We won because the alternative was failure, and failure meant losing our chance to join this council. Failure meant being dismissed as primitives for another 50 years. Dae-ho's voice grew harder. You think our weapons are crude, they are. You think our ship is ugly. She is. But when Commander Hyon challenged us, when this council set up an engagement designed to humiliate us, we did not back down. We adapted. We improvised. We found a way to win. He turned to look directly at the Valtrexi delegation. Commander Hyon made a mistake that many of you seem to be making right now. He assumed that advanced technology equals superiority. He thought that because his ships were newer and more powerful, victory was guaranteed. He forgot that technology is just a tool. It's the mind using that tool that matters. Are you suggesting we are inferior? Demanded a delegate angrily. No, Dae-ho said bluntly. I'm saying you're unprepared. You've had peace for so long, won so many easy victories that you've forgotten what real war looks like. Real war is not pretty. It's not honorable. It's not elegant. Real war is doing whatever it takes to protect your people and achieve your objectives. The chamber fell silent. Dae-ho's words hung in the air like an accusation. My species comes from a death world, he continued. Our planet tried to kill us in 1,000 different ways. The weather, the animals, the diseases, even the plants. We survived by being smarter and tougher and more stubborn than anything that came against us. Then we turned those skills on each other and fought wars that killed millions. We learned lessons you've never had to learn. He walked toward the exit, then paused and turned back. You can deny us membership if you want. You can keep pretending that your way is the only way. But someday, you're going to face an enemy that doesn't care about your traditions or your honor or your elegant tactics. When that day comes, you're going to wish you had learned from us instead of mocking us. Deho left the chamber. The silence he left behind was profound. The vote was called. This time, there was no unanimous decision. The debate was fierce. But slowly, carefully, the votes were counted. Humanity's petition for full military membership passed. 3 days later, Deho stood on the bridge of the Indomitable Spirit, watching repair crews work on the damaged sections. Bora approached with a data pad showing the Council's final decision. "We did it, Captain. We're in." "We are," Deho agreed. He looked at his ship, scarred and battered but still operational. "But this is just the beginning. They'll study us now. Copy our tactics. Learn our methods. Does that worry you?" Bora asked. "No," Deho said with a slight smile, "because by the time they learn what we did yesterday, we'll have invented something new. That's what humans do. We adapt." Young Six's voice came through the communications. "Captain, engineering reports the main drive is back online. We're ready to depart when you give the word." "Good work, Young Six. Take us home." The Indomitable Spirit detached from the station and began the long journey back to Earth. Behind her, the Galactic Council continued its debates and discussions. Ahead of her, the stars waited, and humanity, having proven themselves in the crucible of combat, prepared for whatever challenges those stars might hold.